once you're in a painting, you're in another world. So if you're depressed, of course if you're very depressed you can't do anything. But if you're just not feeling 100% and you feel you want to get yourself out of that situation, you can get into another situation and relax. And I think this applies to painting or music or dancing or any of the creative arts, to be able to lose yourself in another world. It's also, I paint with other people a lot, and I find that we all have something in common and we see things the same way or not the same way, but we can discuss them, and I feel very comfortable with other people who paint. Now we're moving to Sydney. Herbert loves Sydney and we have to go there on holiday every January, and we're usually there for Australia Day. I love the rocks. They might be commercialised, but I still think they're a very attractive and historical place to visit. So these paintings are the International Terminal with the bridge in the background. One of my favourite paintings is the next one, which I took from a very high point, and it was looking down on the market in the rocks, and if you look carefully you can see a little bit of the Opera House and the boat in the International Terminal in the distance. Here is another painting of the bridge. I know the perspective isn't right, but I was looking at shapes, purely shapes in this, and it's using a pen and watercolour. And then I was down in that rocks area one day, and one of the old sailing ships was just leaving the wharf to take a tourist group out into the harbour, and it was just in front of the Opera House. So it looked as if the sails of the Opera House were the sails of the ship, and I thought it was rather wonderful, and I took a photo and I did this painting. The next paintings are also paintings of the bridge in the rocks area. In 1996, I was lucky enough to go to Central Australia with the American artist Charles Reed. And these paintings, 3 paintings, are of this area. The first one was the Hermannsburg Mission, where Namatjura lived with his family. There was a hall there that had some of his paintings, and I thought it was a disgrace. It was like an old garage, and I thought it was disgraceful. Today there is a lot going on with the Namatjura family. They live in poverty, and yet his paintings are bringing very, very high prices, and it's very, very sad. The next painting is Desert Oaks, and the difference with these Desert Oaks are they've all got black trunks, and that was in the Ayers Rock area. And the third one is just moods of Ayers Rock, which in those days you could actually climb it, and I think I did climb it. Now we go to Tasmania, also in 1996, and a couple of little paintings here. One was a place called Bushy Park, and it grew hops, and these are hop kilns, and I couldn't help thinking how European it looked. And the next one, I was painting with the Victorian Artists Society, and we were staying in a motel on the very, very top of Mount Wellington. And on the first day it snowed, so we had to paint from our motel room, and that was a painting I did of Mount Wellington. I suppose having been a graphic artist, my early paintings always had a look of a graphic design about them. But I've learnt from 2 or 3 very good teachers, and I've picked up things that I've liked about them. And I don't paint in one particular style. I paint in the style that I feel that subject lends itself. And so I think if you see my paintings, you wouldn't sort of say, oh, that's been done by Jan Palmer, because Jan Palmer can do quite a lot of different sort of ways of painting. Brighton, that area has always been a very popular place for holidaying for us. And this particular year, the year 2000, we went to Harriettville, and I did these paintings of the tobacco farmers, and I did these paintings because this was really the end of the tobacco industry. These plantations were all dug up, and it is now grows nuts and fruit. The Northern Territory was a wonderful trip. I went in 2002 with Margaret Cowling, and these are some of the paintings. These paintings I have done, some of them mixed media. The first one is Muralingi Rock. The colours, of course, are absolutely beautiful up there. The Florence Waterfall in Litchfield Park. The Catherine Gorge, and there's our baobab tree doing very well in the Northern Territory. Of course, the thing of the baobab tree is that it grows in a place where they have a very dry summer, and they hold all the water in their trunk, and that's why it's so bulbous. And the last one is another painting it's pastel, I think, of Catherine Gorge. In 2007, I was lucky enough to do a workshop with Ross Patterson at Dookie. We stayed at the Agricultural College, and it was very misty in the morning. Now, Dookie itself is a wheat-growing area, and the other thing it's famous for is its railway station. And the railway station is there to collect the wheat. So these two paintings were done fairly early in the morning. There was a mist over the countryside, and this is a painting of the silos and also of a railway crossing. In 2009, we had a lovely little holiday in a cottage in the Buckland Valley. And when we came back from the Buckland Valley, there had been a lot of very bad fires, particularly in the Myrtleford area, which was not too far from where we were, but would have meant that it would have been a longer trip coming home. So I said I'd like to go and have a look at them, and we did. And these are the paintings that I did in Myrtleford. Most of these people had to leave and rebuild. And the last little painting in this group is the Buckland Valley, where we stayed with Mount Buller in the distance. 2011, we had a holiday in Echuca, and these are two little pen and wash drawings that I did of the Murray River and the paddle boats. These paddle boats, they use timber to burn for the paddle boats, and the local people complained that they were cutting down all the beautiful gums in that area, and so they had to stop doing it because they go through an enormous amount of fuel every time they sail, and so now they bring their timber down from somewhere up north, and it costs a fortune. This is sketches of different buildings in Broken Hill. It's done on a hot press paper, which means there's no roughage or grain at all. And I've used this Winsor Newton Payne's Grey because I felt it led to the silvery effect, and I've used a pen and a felt pen there for the lines. Broken Hill fascinates me. And it forever amazes me how a city which was really the backbone of Australia with its mining has these little wrought iron and humpies. We went there in 1994. They were there then and they're there now. These paintings are of those little cottages the Palace Hotel, which is now a museum and shows a lot of the what they used for Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, in that film. And they're trying to do some more filming up there because they want to get people there, and it's an interesting place for a background for a film. The next one is Brown Shaft Junction Mine, which was built in 1886. I think that is about the only mine that is still in use. And here we've got some more little humpies. And this other little cottage was one I painted in 1994. This painting is de Pratt's mine. And at the top of it, when we were there was a beautiful restaurant where you could see a lovely sunset while you were having dinner. Unfortunately, a couple of years later, there was a very big landslide, and I think the people that had the restaurant thought it was too big a risk to get people up there anymore, and the restaurant, unfortunately, is no longer there. These last two little paintings I did in 1994 when we went from Broken Hill to a little town called Silverton. The first one is just parts of very old houses, the remains, and the second one was a pub, and they had a raffle there with the prize was a Pro Hart painting, and he did a lot of painting in this area. But while I was painting, I heard in the background a clip clop, and I turned around and there was a horse. And the horse came along to the pub window and he put his head through the window, and the guy inside gave him a tankard of beer. And evidently he does this every day. 2015, I went to Mount Buller with a painting and photography group in the summer, which was rather fun. And these are drawings done in January. The first one is a horseman riding through the forest there. The second one, they're trying to encourage people to come up in the summertime, and they're trying to promote mountain biking up in the summer in the mountains, and this was my version of a mountain biker cycling through the gum trees. There are a lot of sculptures on Mount Buller. I think it is a competition that they have every year, and if they win, they go onto the mountain. So this painting shows some of the sculptures. Even the skis on the bottom of the painting are actually a sculpture. The next one was a painting I did many years ago, actually in the wintertime when we were up the snow skiing. It was a very bad year and there was no snow, and I was just sitting in the room reading, and all of a sudden it started to sprinkle and all the birds were fluttering in the trees and very excited. So that's what that painting was about. This is another one of the snow gums. And this is my version of the mountain cattleman, actually done on a material called yapo. It's a synthetic material and you can rub it off. And the gum trees in this painting are the remains of where a fire has gone through, and snow gums evidently take the longest to regenerate of any gum trees. And so these fires could have been about 10 years ago, and there's a tiny little bit of regeneration down by the roots. The two cattlemen are a sculpture at the top of Mount in the village, and I went round the whole sculpture and drew it at different angles, and I used these two angles for the cattleman in that painting. And the last one in this group is actually a painting in the summertime, a drawing that I did in Falls Creek.